Jerry, how have you been, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing very well. Now, Jerry, before we get into the new record, I have only said this to one other guy, and it was Tony Iommi of Black Sabbath. Mr. Cantrell, thank you, sir, for all the great riffs, man.
Oh, thanks for listening, dude. I appreciate it.
It really has. It's been a joy all these years. The riffs, the harmonies, the melodies, the lyrics, and seeing you perform, man. I can't wait to see you again, man.
I look forward to hitting the road in March. It's going to be good to get back to work. It'll have been a couple of years since I've been on a stage, so I'm looking forward to rocking out with some folks, songs from the past, and also plenty of songs off this new record, Brighton.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of the pandemic. Alice in Chains was on break, I believe. The pandemic hits. You head to the studio to work on a new solo record, Brighton. What went through your mind when the industry just shut down in all forms other than really writing new material?
Well, I was already well into motion on this record when everything shut down, so that probably was a good thing. I did a couple of live shows in December of 19. I think the tour wrapped up in September with Korn at the end of the Rainier Fog tour, and Tyler Bates and I, my co-producer and friend on this record, we started talking about making a record, and thought it would be a good time to do a couple of shows and invite some people in, and we did those two shows in L.A. In December 19, and actually a good chunk of those players end up appearing on the record. So we went to the studio in March, and in between that time, Paul Figueroa and myself and Tyler did a lot of demoing, and we got the basic tracks cut and laid right about mid-March, right as the order came down to shut down. So at least I had the bones of the record already done, and during the downtime, it gave me, I had plenty of time to do what I needed to do, and I still had a whole lot of stuff to do. And kind of a weird thing, because it took a little bit longer, and it was a little more difficult to make. We had a few players come in that I think were critical to the sound of the record late. Abe Laboriel Jr. came in late toward the end, and Vincent Jones, keyboard player, amazing. Both those guys, their contribution to the record is outstanding. Yeah.
Now, what was the experience working on an album during the unknown of what a pandemic may bring?
Well, every record has its challenges. It's an interesting process making a record. It's usually about a 3-year cycle. From writing, demoing, recording, and then going out and touring it. So I didn't get the immediate, satisfaction of hitting the road right out when I released the record, but we'll make that up in March. But each record really has its own challenges because it's a different period of time, and records are kind of like a time capsule. So this is unique, Mm-hmm. You're going to have to deal with whatever when you make a record. This was a particular wrinkle that I don't think any of us saw coming. We're all still trying to figure out how to deal with it. So you make do, and you adapt and try to remain malleable and figure it out.
Now, did any of the surrounding events of the pandemic happen to influence the new album at all? I mean, I know you work ahead, you've been writing songs, but did any of that slip into the making of this record?
Well, most everything was complete. The writing part was pretty complete before it shut down. So but any good song can relate to any time. You know what I mean? And I think there's a few songs that are pretty timely for the years that we've been living through the last few, and that's a sign of a good song. It can fit in any time, and I think this record has a really strong group of songs, and it's a complete body of work. It's a real rock and roll record.
Well, let's talk about some of those songs. Atone, the first single from the new album Brighton, that'll be out October 29th. You know, it has this dark Western vibe in the sound and in the video. And is it you that's seeking to atone for something, or are you encouraging others to atone?
Well, it could be any of that. That's also really that's also a good songwriting, is when it could relate to anybody or anything, and there's probably a little of both. You know, it's a song that I'm really proud of. I had that riff around for like a lot of years, but I just never completed the song. You know, I didn't have the other parts for it until about a year and a half ago. So it all fell together, and I came up with a couple of really great parts that completed it, and it's a strong tune. Tyler, I think it was the first song we started working on, and he's like, man, that's got to open the record, and he was right. It really sets the tone, you know. Is there
anything you think you need to atone for?
You know, I look at it as, you know, got to find a way to atone to a guitar, you know, and I believe I found my way to that. So
you sure have. Now, Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses, he appears in the video, and there have been some videos of you and Duff doing some acoustic covers and stuff like that. When did you and Duff become friends, and did Duff play on the record?
Oh, years ago. I've known Duff a long time, and we've had a long friendship. You know, he's a musician I really admire. Guns N' Roses was a very influential band on Alice in Chains when we were just forming. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of jamming on stuff of his, and he's jammed on this record as well. And, you know, he went on tour with us. He played guitar when we reformed as a band. So, like, he was right there supporting us on stage with us, you know. So, like, you know, he was like the fifth Alice for a while. I love him, man. He's just a great human being, super musical. I invited him over and I think he only really intended to play like on a song or two, and then I got him over here. After he got done with that song or two, I'm like, how about this one? How about this one? It sounds really good, dude. Keep playing, you know. And so he did. It was awesome. Yeah.
Now, I heard a story recently of way back in the day, you giving Axl Rose a demo, and you saw him throw it in the trash. You ever bring that up with Axl or Duff?
Yeah, he, you know, like all young bands, you know, you carry your demos around, and obviously they were a very, like I said, an influential band on us, and they were, you know, on the ascent, and met him, you know, I said hello to him with a group of people backstage after the show in Seattle, and I had handed him a tape, and he didn't throw it away. His bodyguard did. He handed it to his bodyguard as they were walking away, and his bodyguard chucked it. So I can't say that Axl actually did that, but years later, I had never met him, and I think I was hanging out with Billy Duffy in a club in New York, and I saw Axl come in. And, you know, I've told this story before. Obviously, you know it, so yeah. I've talked about it. And I also, in that story, had talked about that was the night that I met my girlfriend at the time, longtime girlfriend, Courtney. And he kind of made a beeline to me, and he's like, man, are you still with that girl? like he'd heard the story, too. And he was more interested in if I was still with the girl that I met at his show, you know. So I said no, but we're friends. And, you know, we talked for a while and had a laugh about it. It was all good. Yeah.
Well, Brighton, the title track of your upcoming solo album, is out now, and I just love the harmonies and the feel of the track. Now, other than when Elton John played piano on Alice in Chains' Black Gives Way to Blue, which is a phenomenal track and one of my all-time favorite albums, but I noticed some piano on Brighton, and is it just the one song, or is there going to be more of that on the album? Because I liked it.
Yeah, it's cool, man. You know, I was able to, I had two really great players. Jordan Lewis is a really talented guy, and he played keys I did a couple of shows in L.A., 2 nights at a Pico Union project in December 19th, and December 19, and Jordan played keys in that. And I also had Michael Rosen on pedal steel, and both of those guys appear on the record. But there's another keyboard player, which you hear on Brighton, and his name is Vincent Jones, and amazing talented guy. My engineer and co-producer Paul Figueroa introduced me to Vincent, and not only did he do an amazing job on Brighton, he also did a really, really touching and haunting piano and string arrangement on Goodbye, the Elton John cover on the record. So
Wow.
there's a healthy dose of piano, there's a healthy dose of pedal steel and some other instruments too. It was really fun to play with some instruments that I hadn't relied on so heavily on a record, and it's kind of it's a thing, it's really great.
Well, a longtime friend of mine, his name is Tim Rickard. He's been longtime friends with one of your friends, producer Nick Raskulinecz, and I've gotten to know Nick over the years through Tim. And Nick told Tim a story after making the album Black Gives Way to Blue, that when he initially got the call to come out and meet with you guys about recording the Alice in Chains record, Nick said that he originally had planned to say no because he didn't want the pressure of having to follow up that amazing catalog you had created with the late, great Lane Staley. And then he said you played the opening riff for Check My Brain, and Nick said, I'm in. How did you wind up choosing to work with Nick on the last 3 Chains records?
Yeah, well, I got to give a lot of credit to Dave Grohl on that. And, Dave's also an old friend and somebody, that I admire. And I'm really proud of him that he's had the second life and career that he's had with Foo Fighters. And when we were starting to think about making another record, Dave offered his studio, the 606, and so we came down there, and I remember hanging out with him, and he's like, I know who you need to work with, and it was Nick. He said, you got to meet Nick, and he kept on me about it. I'm like, okay, well, if he must be right. So I met him. And I invited him over to the house, and we were up in my little bedroom studio, turn a guest bedroom into just a little Pro Tools room, and I played Check My Brain. And as soon as that song was done, he's like, I'm in. Yeah. Yeah.
Dude,
that's a great song.
Such a great riff. I remember getting to hear A Looking in View and those tom-toms, and when the riff came in, I was like, oh my gosh, man, they did it. It was so amazing. Love that record, by the way.
Thank you.
The Alice in Chains catalog and your first 2 solo records, Bogey Depot and Degradation Trip, to me, have all had a dark feel to them. And so far, kind of the first 2 tracks from Brighton I've heard seem to follow that. Are you okay, man? Or is this just an amazing catalog of music that you call therapy?
No, I'm good, man. I think I've fallen into like a language, if you will, that I developed with the guys in the band and with Lane. The 2-voice thing, the harmonies, the darkness, and also the darkness and the light. The blending of the two, and kind of moving from one to the other. A major to a minor. It's something. It's a theme that I continue to play with. It works. It makes sense to me. And, I think this record has elements of all of that. Yeah.
Well, in the 2 tracks I've heard so far, it definitely does, and I can't wait to hear the rest. I've always loved your guitar tone. Even back when I was trying to be a rock star, I used the Alice in Chains album Dirt, Metallica's Black Album, and Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood. Those were the ones we were trying to emulate tones from as we were making records. And you were recently announced a Gibson signature guitar, the Wino Les Paul. What's the story behind the Wino?
Yeah, the Wino's a good guitar, and Gibson is a great company. Of course, I'm mostly known for playing the G&L Rampage, and I still, that is still a key part of my sound. But I also have incorporated Les Pauls, especially in the recording process, and also live from way back as well. So that's pretty much my two go-to axes, the Les Paul and the G&L Rampage. So Gibson and I started talking a few years ago, and with Cesar and JC and Peter Leineiser and Jenny, those 4, we started talking about. They started sending me guitars, and Cesar, actually, he made me before I decided to partner up with those guys. He made a flat black baritone Explorer baritone for me and gave it to me, and I just thought that was so cool because that's another instrument that is really kind of key to my sound, and I've used on every record from the get-go as a baritone guitar. I learned that trick from Dave Jordan, and I just thought that was really touching, and I really like what they're doing with the company. It was looking kind of dire there for a sec, but with the new the new team coming in, they breathe new energy into a classic, classic American company, and one of the greatest, between Fender, it's Fender and Gibson pretty much, for rock and roll. So, I'm really proud to be part of it. We plan on making a few guitars, but we started with the Wino. It's a guitar I've had since I think 96 or 97, and kind of tinkered with it a little bit, and some of those mods are on there. It's a great guitar, a good-looking guitar, too.
Now, you still playing the Friedman amps?
Absolutely. Yeah, Dave Friedman is a genius. My model is the Double J, and there's plenty of that on this record as well.
I saw you guys in Indiana before I moved back up to Michigan. You guys were playing at the Morris, and I saw Dave Friedman in the crowd, and so I stalked him out at the end of the show, a buddy of mine by the name of Greg, and we talked to him about amps for a few minutes, and I was trying to talk him into making a 4-channel amp, and any thoughts on a 4-channel?
Oh, if whatever works for you, versatility is always good to have in an amp. Some amps do one thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. In a studio environment, I'm using, not only the Friedman, but 10 other different heads, so Donos, Bogner's, Marshalls, Fenders, Orange, Laney's, you name it. And, some amps are a little bit more one thing. Other amps are very versatile, so I think versatility is a good thing on an amp.
I had read recently you had recovered a Les Paul that Eddie Van Halen had given you as a gift. How did that all happen?
Well, actually, it was an Ernie Ball EVH. When Eddie came out with those, and we were on tour with him, he had just come out with that particular guitar, and he was rocking the 5150s and the Ernie Ball Music Man. Yeah. And great guitar, and toward the end of that tour, we'd become friends, and he just meant the world to me, and I was like, hey man, you think you could give me like a discount on a couple of those guitars? I'd like to get a couple of those. And he's like, oh, no way, man, I'm not taking any money from you, I'll give them to you. So I came home, and there was like a 5150 stack and a couple of guitars in the garage, and wow. I've had those guitars since then. When I made Degradation Trip in 2000, 2001, I was in the studio over at the old A&M, which is now Henson or whatever, and the gold top went missing, and so it had been gone for about 18, 19 years, and I never knew what the hell happened to it, just that it went missing during that record. And I had a couple of guitar collectors, one in Florida and one in San Diego, independently reach out to me and say they thought they found it. And one of them actually met the guy that had the guitar, bought it, and then drove it up to L.A. to give it to me. And it's just amazing.
Wow.
Got it back.
Well, the new album Brighton comes out October 29th. You're going to be hitting the road next spring. You got one stop here in Michigan, March 28th at St. Andrews Hall. Any chance you may extend those dates and maybe come see us here in Grand Rapids, Michigan? Yeah,
that's not the only tour I'm going to do on this record, but it's the first round. So if I don't get near you this time, hopefully I'll get closer on the second round. Yeah,
we'd love to see you here, man. One more quick thing.
I'd love to be there.
I know you're a big fan of the NFL Seattle Seahawks this year. Any predictions, man?
Well, it's a good start. We're starting off with the Colts and the Titans, so that's two tough teams. I don't think the Titans are going to lay an egg like they did last week. It's going to be a slugfest. But I think the Hawks are looking good. It all really comes down to health. If your team stays healthy, you got a good shot at going all the way. And if you got Russell Wilson as your quarterback and Pete Carroll as your coach, you could do a lot worse,
Well, Jerry, it has been an honor and a pleasure to get to talk with you. I can't wait to see you out on the road and hear the brand new album Brighton, man.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me on.